and Matt on the Slip and Dip podcast.
Beautiful, man.
Woo! Slip and Dip podcast, episode 72. New place, new digs, fresh off the heels of UFC 229. What do you think, man? All the craziness.
Well, there's a lot to get into about that, and I will just say this about Mr. Khabib, or Khabib, sorry. Khabib Nurmagomedov, because you're not supposed to say the G in his last name either. Khabib Nurmagomedov absolutely made an ass of himself after winning the title, or keeping the title rather, and still over Conor McGregor. And an absolutely impressive performance, man. He actually went out there and toyed. He didn't say, I want to say toyed with Conor, but he stood with Conor, which is something that I didn't expect him to do at all. In that third round, he stood with him for.
I think Conor won that round, though.
He did win that round.
But people's going to still do that false narrative. He still has never lost a round. Yeah, he lost that.
Yeah, he lost a fight against T-Bow, but that's not a thing we're going to get into. But to have that opportunity to go out there, do what he did against Conor, to have the belt wrapped around your waist, to hear Bruce Buffer say "and new" in front of all those Irish fans, after being so respectful in the lead-up, so respectful, just being quiet, being humble, being that man that says, "Hey, I'm going to show up, handle my business," and then go a complete 180 after Herb Dean pulls you off, jump the cage, cause all this chaos. You completely ruined all those moments that you could have had, all the future promotional stuff. Now we have basically bus incident number 2, but it involved a cage and a full crowd in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile.
But here's the thing, though. We talking about combat sports, like you just said. What does it matter if he was humble or not? At the end of the day, he did his thing. And yeah, he messed up his rumble. I agree with you there. But let's not get real. They fight 6 months from now. He gonna make more money than he would have had he just took his belt and shut up. So, who's really the loser in this situation?
Well, we all
talk about combat sports.
Him at the end of the day, because I will say this about, kind of to your point, is that
this is combat sports.
Yeah, what the UFC does is they kind of take things and make it in a combat sports setting. The way they present not only the sport, but their whole presentation style and everything like that, they kind of almost make you forget that fighting is at the base of what they do, because they do everything so clean, everything so professional. And to have these kind of moments like this, it kind of brings it all back and be like, oh, this is what we're really doing here. Like, if you watch promos and everything like that, the way it's all done, it's all super professional, it's all super clean. You forget that cage fighting is what drives this thing at the end of the day. 2 men get locked in the cage, fight it out. At the end of the day, yeah, you kind of do forget, because, like I said, it's so professional, and so, like, you just look at different promotions. If you go covering different promotions, just watching it, backstage, it's not nearly as clean as how UFC runs it. UFC runs it in a way that it's uptight, maybe a little bit too uptight at times, but it's like you forget cage fighting is what's really going on.
I know what you're saying, but it's like UFC pick and chooses what they want to be professional. At the same point, by your same point, the reason this shit keeps happening because there's no repercussions. There really was no repercussions but a slap on the wrist for Conor and the bus thing. Dana's like, don't even worry about me, Habib. Worry about the Balance State Athletic Commission. So there's really no repercussions for these people doing these outlandish things, and they keep coming back. So that's why stuff keeps happening. Yes. Nobody's talking about that though. Until the next time it happens, it'd be like, oh, it's happening again. And then we're talking about multiple people. We went from John Jones to DC. Now we gone to Conor. Now we going to Khabib. Who's going to be the next person? Because there's going to be a next person. It's just a matter of when and who.
That's where they kind of shot themselves in this foot, and that's also why it was a very, very important question. Like you talked about it earlier about asking whether they're going to use that footage being a silly question.
It is.
Here's why it's not silly, because when you have that you're using that to promote a fight, you're promoting an actual crime to promote the fight.
Talk about what you just get them saying though. What you just get them saying about the promo? That's what they were just doing. They just did it.
Let me finish. Because when you use that to promote the fight, right? You're using that act anytime these fighters are sitting around, because the fighters watch these promos, they watch embedded during fight week, they watch everything, and if you're in Khabib's camp, you see the commercial, you see the bus footage hundreds of times, you get more you just get reminded every other moment. You're reminded about that bus attack. What do you think is going to happen when these guys are finally 5 feet away from each other? Like, there's literally an octagon, and a couple of rent-a-cops in between you. Like, these guys are going to try to. Some stuff's about to pop off.
Yeah.
But when you have no repercussions from the promotion, UFC didn't say, Conor, you're suspended for what you did. You're not going to be fighting, yada yada. All Dana said was he lost so much money in his litigation. He had to cut, all the stuff. But at the end of the day, the promotion is not punishing him for going out there and doing what he did. So therefore, Khabib thinks he can get away with doing the same type of thing in front of everybody because UFC didn't punish Khabib. Or they didn't punish Conor, rather. They're just going to let the law handle it. So it'll be interesting to see, because this time the law was involved. Conor said he wasn't pressing charges, but that third wheel here is now the Athletic Commission, which is going to step in and say, hey, Khabib, you did this within a event that was sanctioned by us, so we can suspend you. Now it's going to be up to the UFC to say, okay, well, you're going to be suspended for probably a year, which is probably going to happen. He's probably going to be suspended for a year by the Nevada Athletic Commission, and now the UFC is going to strip him of his title. So there will be repercussions from the promotion for that.
But see, that, I guess logic is thrown out the window. So you can cheat in a combat sports. If you cheating, you're basically playing with somebody's life. So you can cheat and only get 6 months, be it boxing or MMA. But you do something like that just because the optics aren't good, we're gonna give you a year. Like, what sense does that make in the reality?
Because you're putting the difference is you're putting your opponent's in danger. Your opponent, one other guy in a controlled environment. When you do something with Khabib,
but that's the main thing. That's what they're going to regulate, though.
It's completely different.
That's what they're going to regulate, though.
The general crowd, you're putting pain.
I understand,
in danger.
But that's they're 95% what the Nevada State Athletic Commission is for is to regulate that. So it's okay if your opponent gets hurt. We don't gonna give you 6 months for the first time, but don't do something that we didn't expect to happen. We're gonna drop the hammer down on you.
Of course, those are two completely different things, because there's always that inherent risk that your opponent may be cheating. That's why they have drug testing, and they hope the drug testing catches everything. That's why they have USADA. They hope USADA can catch everything, and there's masking agents, things like that. There's a way to get around these tests. Doing what Khabib did is completely different because he did it and he endangered the crowd. And those people were paying patrons of an event. They paid thousands of dollars for these tickets to sit cage side, and then all of a sudden, the guy who is getting paid to fight inside the cage jumps that barrier to keep everybody separated. He jumps that barrier, literally jumped the barrier, and started a fight that could have spilled out into the crowd. And what we saw from social media did spill out into the T-Mobile. It spilled out into the T-Mobile concourse. It spilled out into the casino floors. It spilled out.
I'm talking about Mike Tyson?
I'm talking about last night. There were videos all over the place of people getting in fights.
Well, why? This is not in Vegas. I was there for the Mayweather and Madonna fight. There was a stampede and people got their legs snapped in half and stuff. We had security in the damn media room. Never been so happy to see the federal state troopers bust up in there. But this is not nothing new. People are like, this is the first thing. But in the same breath, y'all talking all that noise about Dana. Dana, why don't you got no fans up in here? Why don't you have to fight in New York? Man, if this is in New York, UFC can't go back to 2025 at the earliest.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been terrible.
Yeah, that's why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
They knew it was, they had to do it in Vegas.
And I think it's something, I give Dana credit. I think they look at something we don't see. They can kind of control the narrative. How Mayweather has done over the years with his outside the ring stuff. Come on now, they pushed back his day to go into jail, surrounded about his fight, so he could bring money to the city of Las Vegas and cut his time from 6 months to 60 days.
Yeah, it's crazy event, man. At the end of the day, it sucks that all of this takes away from what was an incredible event leading up to the main event. Even the main event itself was incredible. Like,
Khabib did his thing.
Tony Ferguson, Anthony Pettis was an incredible fight. Tony Ferguson proved once again that he is just
he got the most machismo in MMA.
Puts a pace on guys that is unmatched. These guys can't deal with this pressure. Like, there's nobody that puts that type of pressure on anybody else. Like, I thought Khabib was Khabib is pressuring, but in a different way. He's going to
smothers brothers.
He smothers you with his wrestling. Tony will get in your face. He's hurting you, and he's smothering you with threatening strikes, and he's mixing up where the strikes are going and everything like that. He's just on a different level when it comes to all
that's crazy that he doesn't spar.
No, that's smart that he doesn't spar.
It's smart.
There's no reason you should be sparring hard. I mean, light sparring.
What you just say? Sparring hard. You can spar without sparring hard.
True. But even when you try to spar light, you still end up getting cracked a couple of times. It happens. It does happen.
But you in the gym store.
I've been a part of it.
but the thing is though, to me, like this is a whole other narrative. He gets the belt at 155. There's no way he can move up and be able to dominate. Like if he had a super fight with Tyron, there's no way you can prepare for that without go sparring when you start moving up. No way.
I disagree. He don't want the 170 pounds. Is like I'm just saying, if he gets the belt and holds it for a little bit, like what's next for Tony? Let him go up to 170 and hit one of those headhunters. That's one of the top guys up there. He won't be ready for that. I don't think that would play any different because you're talking about a different type of fighter there. But to bring it back. I guess the brightest spot of last night, UFC 229.
My balls are hot, man. Hold on.
My balls are hot. Derek Lewis, man, guest of the show, been on a few times. That was the funniest moment. That was by far the best moment, I think, ever for UFC. But
he's the funniest moment of UFC and the Slip and Dip podcast.
Yeah, because not only was that the most Derek Lewis fight of all Derek Lewis fights ever, where he's just out there looking like he's just going to let the time expire on the fight after getting beat for 2 rounds. And then all of a sudden, that 1-2 flatlines Volkov. And for not only does he hit the pound into the chest, the beat on the floor, that's his signature immediate celebration.
You ever play that post fight for the people?
Oh, I don't have it pulled up, but I'll try to find it. But then he hits the guys with taking off his shorts inside the cage. And my balls were hot. My balls were hot, Joe Rogan. That's what was going on.
I wish you could play it.
I'm going to try to find it, but...
whatchamacallit, people overlooking that dominant performance by Dominic Reyes. That kid's the truth. He'd be somebody that could give John Jones some problems 2 or 3 years, and he's savvy. And for him not to have much experience, like he out savvy OSP. Oh, really? You gonna try to play this old school game? I'm gonna play with you a little bit, and then he went back to that new school mentality and took his ass out of there.
Yeah,
and that was weird though. How can they give him a finish? Because it's like he got saved by the bell. But the thing is that's a championship fight. He does not get saved by the bell. That's a stoppage. You caught that, right?
Say what now?
If that fight was going 4 rounds, the way it ended, because he never did go to his stool, that fight would have got counted as a stoppage because you got to go to your stool or be at a resting position.
He did.
He did.
That's what immediately, as soon as he landed.
Because you don't have to be next to your stool, but you have to be at a resting position. They call it.
Get up. Like so, that's what Big Dan did, or Tan Dan did. He got up, he rushed in. The buzzer sounded, and he told OSP, "You got to get up." And he didn't wave it off or anything. And OSP kind of looked at him for a second, and he started getting up.
Okay.
So,
because a lot of people don't realize that rule is kind of like MMA's version of being saved by the bell. The Eric Anders fight is puts it in full stream.
Yeah.
Like you have to because necessarily I said call you got to get to your stool, but you got to be in a resting position. Like if you against the cage, you got to be standing up.
Yeah, you got to be responsive.
Yeah.
But here it is.
You got to be in a resting position.
If it'll play, come on, play Twitter. What's going on? That was a different part. That was hilarious. But oh my god.
Oh yeah, the whole thing play.
Here we go. Here's
I'm here with the winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take him?
Let me get it back bigger here.
I'm here with the winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off?
My balls was hot.
I understand.
What you just did was absolutely phenomenal. That was an incredible comeback victory, and it shows one of the reasons why people love to watch you fight, that you can put it all to bed with one shot.
I told them boys, I got number heart. You know, they keep underestimating me. Shit, I ain't all that technical and all that, but shit, I'm getting there. Fuck it.
No one will question your heart, sir, after this. Let's take a look at the knockout. This is a come-from-behind knockout, the likes that we haven't seen in a long time. And you were looking for that big haymaker all night. You found it in the last minute of the fight. Talk us through this, Derek.
I forgot a few hours before the fight, Donald Trump called me and told me I got knocked this Russian motherfucker out. So they're making him look bad on the news. You know, him and Putin and shit. Fuck what they talking about. USA in this whole
USA in this.
You came into this fight the #2 contender with that knockout. You're absolutely one of the top guys in line for a shot at the title next. So tell us what you think about that.
I need to sit my black ass down.
Congratulations on an amazing victory, and thank you very much for a really, really entertaining fight.
Thanks for having me. Hey, maybe next week or sometime or 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna come on your show and smoke some weed with you.
Anytime, sir. Anytime. And you got the best Instagram in the game, I'll tell you right now. Derek Lewis, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man, that's one of the best moments in UFC ever. That really is.
I ain't said my black ass down. What you talking about right now?
Man, he's a.
What do you think about getting a title shot? I don't think we'll ever hear that again. What do you think about the title shot you gonna get next time? I ain't get my gas taken. Fuck what you talking about right now.
Yeah, incredible moments, man. And
boy,
UFC 229, man. It definitely had its roller coaster of events, and that was definitely the peak right there. But man, what an event! Shout out to Michelle Washington getting her hand raised.
Carly Hardy, we trying to get you on. I'm gonna holler at her tomorrow.
For sure. And yeah, so incredible event, man. Incredible event, top to bottom. We look forward to seeing what's going to happen with Khabib and the fallout and the Nevada State Athletic Commission, what they're going to end up doing. It's probably going to be a lengthy suspension, I would think, at least a year. And you know, we're probably looking at Tony Ferguson fighting for a vacant title here soon.
Khabib's about his money. I think they'll come to a deal and he'll be out. It won't be a year. It might be 9 months. I think let's go because I was inside with the Cole Canelo thing. And like I said, I just think it's crazy that what they actually regularize in between the ropes is gonna get less attention than this incident. But yeah, they're trying to get Khabib's money. That's what they want more than him being gone for a year. They want that purse.
Well,
no, he didn't get that check. He didn't get that $3 million.
That purse is currently withheld by the Athletic Commission, so you know, until they figure out what's going to happen with that. Hopefully, we hear in the next couple of days what's going to happen, and that will obviously set the stage for, you know, how everything shakes out after that. But yeah, 229, man, an incredible event. Like I said, roller coaster. Let's do this. We break it down even further with Mr. Stephen Wright, good friend of the show, trainer to multiple UFC fighters, kickboxers around the globe, and yeah, we talked to him about a little bit of everything. And so we'll roll right on into our interview with Stephen Wright that we just concluded. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, share it with your friends. We do appreciate the comments. Even this Mark Boileau, I appreciate you, man. I don't know you, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you anyways. And we'll hit you guys with some more interviews and some great content next week. We got well, we have some.
Got some guests lined up.
Yeah, we got some guests lined up for next week.
We'll be back to ripping and running.
For sure. So subscribe on YouTube, on YouTube and iTunes, and leave some reviews on iTunes to help the visibility on that platform as well. And enjoy our interview with Stephen Wright. And until next week, guys, we will see you later. Peace.
Please welcome back to the Slip and Dip Podcast, friend of the show and one of the best MMA trainers in the world, Mr. Steve Warman Wright. Steve, have you recovered from the craziness that was UFC 229?
I want to say yes, but then I go to practice tomorrow and I got to answer everybody's questions. So
the thing, I guess, because I'm too practical of a person, like there's several things I'm not understanding. First of all, why are we surprised that a guy that fights for a living is fighting outside of a cage? That's what he does. And two, why these people, especially in the MMA media, Dana, are you going to use this for the footage if they ever fight again? No, and they know the answer. Like, Dana look at them like they crazy. Like, he a fool if he don't. Like this last fight I was telling Matt, my mom doesn't know nothing about Conor, Khabib, or nothing like that. She saw the promo, was like, oh, that's that guy that fought Floyd? They let him out again? He crazy like that? Like, she was just interested just off the promo. Didn't know nothing about nothing, just about him throwing his stuff on the bus. So I think it's for business is what's going to work. It may not, quote unquote, represent the honor of the sport in the practical sense, but I think it was a win-win for the UFC last night. What you think?
Well, first of all, as far as honor of the sport goes, only the fighters and the coaches should have anything to do with honor of the sport. The promoter doesn't have any, sort of relationship with it whatsoever. Like it's not their responsibility. If they do it, it's great. But at the same time, it is not the responsibility of the promoter to uphold the honor of mixed martial arts. Ain't nobody hitting them. You know what I'm saying? So if it was my promotion, and I'm just being real, if it was my promotion, every time Khabib fights, you're going to see that. Every time Conor fights, you're going to see the dollar. Like, it's just, you can't, it's in the narrative of who they are. And that well, they said, use it as if that stoked what was happening. I was like, man, I mean, that might have been on the list of the things that caused what happened, but in real, I mean, it's just, there's no way he can do that and leave that narrative out of it. It would make no sense to me.
What do you think of the fact that it's like Conor knows what he does and doing his thing? It's like Khabib didn't get the message that it was just to promote the fight. It's like he didn't get the joke.
No, I think Khabib is he can fight. Like he's so talented and he did so many extraordinarily things that he's going to do when it happens every single time. Like it's just his transition and Conor really did fight off the first takedown as hard as he could. He tried to do the old wrestling tactic. He tried to reach over the top and then he tried to develop a sprawl. But the moment he gave that a little bit, Khabib transitioned to a body lock and then he was able to finish. And that's I think the thing that makes Khabib so dangerous. It's not the entries. His takedown entries aren't the best. It's his transitions. It's his chain wrestling. He just understands your feel so well. And even in the last series, I was like, when Conor was trying to get up there, I was like, man, Conor better not give up that left overhook, because if his left hand slides over and Khabib gets on his back, that's going to be bad for him. And as soon as he got there, the thing that Khabib did was he did what you see in wrestling matches. He did he wore on his body, he put his weight on the leg. He didn't throw a punch for a while. Like if you go back to it, he didn't throw a punch, he just wore on him. And then I think when he, went for the choke, it's just Conor just like, all right, I want to get out of this spot. And it just shows the skill of it. And I really wish that that's what we were talking about. But unfortunately, the way it ended, there's no way. The end of the fight was far bigger than the fight. Not even close.
Yeah, I think Khabib really screwed himself over because he had an opportunity to make the best of that moment. That could have been his moment, celebrating, getting the belt wrapped around him. That would have been incredible footage to use for future promos. And now you have this unfortunate, infamous footage that will be used in future promos. But kind of to the point of that, it's like it's crazy because Khabib had that opportunity to squash the entire thing in the fight, and that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be done. Like, you are fighting the guy that has you pissed off. You're literally in there with nobody else besides Herb Dean. Herb Dean is there to make sure nobody dies. That's it. So if you got any more animosity you want to get out, don't make him tap out. Keep punching him. Just maul him until like Herb Dean has to pull you off. Like, once that fight is stopped, that should be it. Like, you guys don't have to. You don't have to shake hands. You don't have to hug. You don't have to do the whole, what Conor did with Nate Diaz. They kind of held each other and embraced for a little while after their fight was over. Both of them even. You don't have to do all that, but to go over there and do all that extra shit, man, that's just, come on, man. Like, you screwed yourself so bad because now you don't have that moment of hearing "and still" as Dana wraps the belt around you. You don't have that footage. What you have is the complete opposite.
I laugh because it reminds me of, I haven't seen this show in years, but there was an episode of Entourage years ago, and I didn't even see the whole episode, I just caught the end, but the Ari Gold character, he has like a rival, and the rival like beats him in golf or something like that, and he's like gets so exposed that he has a heart attack and dies. And then they asked him what happened to the guy, and he said him beating me was too much for his heart to take. And I felt like in this situation, all the things that he was going through, and one thing that got, jokes aside, one thing that really does come into play is culture. And I think in America we have this, whether people admit it comes from that or not, we have a turn the other cheek sort of thing, like be the bigger person. And I saw a meme of Anderson Silva, who dealt with everything that you could possibly imagine, outside of a dolly throw, of course, but he dealt with so much when he went into the fight with Chael Sonnen, and afterwards he, was respectful, and he could have lost that, and he came back and had that great submission in the fifth. But the way he acted and responded made everyone kind of just change their mind about the whole situation, the whole lead up. It's like everything was calmed after that. But remember, Chael was using up like Brazilian jokes and calling them dumb and saying that, they were going up to a goat and like trying to figure out where to put their money in, and like he was cracking all these kind of jokes about Brazilian people. And once the fight was over, the way Silva responded made people go, okay, that's what a mixed martial artist does, and you don't even think about it. And you only think about that great moment in mixed martial arts history. You only think about after losing 4.5 rounds, Anderson Silva was able to get the greatest last-second sub that I've ever seen ever in my life.
Yes.
So that's all you think about. What you were talking about here with Khabib, and the reason why it was so upsetting is, he did have that power. He had the ability to do the different culture, and where they come from in their part of the world, how the rest of Russia sees them. It's just, it's a friend of mine who is in Thailand, is Russian, and he's like telling me something, like he's messaging me back and forth, and he says people just don't understand. It's part of the Dagestani culture. They don't just take insults like that. And I think that I had heard that someone called Dylan Donis, I think he called him a terrorist, and that was the thing that made him jump out in the crowd. Now, I mean, I couldn't hear it, so I don't know what was actually said, but I will say this. I understand that in America, people are horrible, just let, the media take care of him or let walk away or whatever. That's not how people do things in different parts of the world. That's not how people do things in different parts of America. You know what I'm saying? Like, just the way you respond to people, everyone just thinks you're supposed to shut up, or you're supposed to just, be the bigger person. It just doesn't work that way in every part of the world. It just, you could be on a basketball court in the Bronx, and that person can win a game. You say the wrong thing, you fight. It's just kind of how it is. So it's unfortunate, but I guess when it happened, I wasn't surprised. I didn't feel like I was watching something I was surprised to see. I was more disappointed.
And see, I told Beth this, and people think I'm being exaggerating. I saw Conor come in the actual Barclays for all the craziness happened, because we had just left. And then I saw Khabib the whole week. And then she summed it up perfectly, because she was on the bus, Caroline Kovacevic, because she's like, yeah, I'm from Poland, this is what happens over there. Like, basically, they brought that European shit over here to America. If this happens in Russia or Ireland, it's not even on the back page. Nobody cares. That's what they do over there, because they bought that life. But since it happened over here in America, and another thing too, Dana's smarter than what people realize, because it kept on saying, why did they have it in New York? Why did they have it in New York? If this happened in New York, they couldn't go back for at least 5 years. That's being nice.
Yeah. Plus, they fought so hard to get to New York. It's I definitely agree with you there. It's difficult for them to go to some places, and that one would have been tough. There are parts of the world, and it is. I mean, that's just not an American thing. If they had done this in Dubai, it'd be tough for them to go back. Like, just the perception of things it's different. You you can't conduct yourself in that way after a victory. And but man, I do understand that we'd left fighting at that point. You know, now we're just talking about just the culture of where someone's from and how they respond to being insulted. And I just think that that's going to be different all around the world. There are going to be some people who are like, all right, whatever, man, you're the loser. You know what I'm saying? In American sports, that's how we're raised to think. You know, you beat somebody by 80, you know, they're talking trash. You don't care. You beat them by a lot, you know. Yeah, but in other parts of the world, yeah, scoreboard, you know what I'm saying? Other parts of the world, you know, they don't say scoreboard, you know, because they only play soccer, so scoreboard doesn't matter that much. They so when you fight, you know, like somebody calls out, you know, your family, that matters something. And you know, before America was on anything, and you know, that's, remember when they used to have duels and you know, standoffs and like all that stuff comes from the culture of insulting. And America's at a place now where, you know, you're supposed to respond differently when, you know, you are insulted in sports anyways. You're supposed to respond differently. But man, it's just, what happened was a really human thing inside of Khabib. Something in him was really, really insulted by that whole scene. He was excited because he shut everybody up. He did what he said. He said, when I get a hold of him, he's going to tap. He did what he's going to say. He was super excited in that moment. And then the moment that he saw that there was no humbleness coming from their corner, in particular Dylan Donis, who just kind of had a history of being outspoken, being that way. Oh, yeah. Everything in him was, oh no, you know, you're over there fighting Bellator, where they're giving you, like, you know, whatever opponent you want, as opposed to the killers that he's seeing in the UFC. Like, he comes off so different. And I mean, what is it? He's been kicked out of big, you know, major jiu-jitsu gyms here in the States. You know, Garcia in New York, I heard that he was kicked out of that gym. So it's like, Dylan Donis is an interesting character, you know. So when he came out yelling back at him, if terrorists came out, Khabib came after him, you saw who was backing up and who was coming after it, you know. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, man. It's like, you think about all the times, you know, everybody has been pointing out the fact that Conor has said all these things to all these different people in lead-ups, you know, the Aldo fights, the Diaz fights, you know, the not so much the Eddie Alvarez fight, but, you know, the thing that people are missing here is that after all of those fights, win or loss, Conor McGregor has gone and been humble. Like, he's shaking hands, he's giving hugs, whatever, saying good job, good fight, you know, we'll do it again, whatever. You know, it's always been respectful after the fact. Like, fight promotion, like Kendrick was saying, I guess Khabib missed the memo that, hey, this was fight promotion. Like, you know? And, you know, it's just, it sucks that it takes away from very huge moment. Hold on, I gotta catch my life here. Oh, shit. Whoa. Little party foul here. But what I was gonna get at is that it took away from you know, the incredible fight itself, and then all of the other things that happened right before it. That Tony Ferguson Anthony Pettis fight was sick, so sick. And how good is Tony Ferguson, man? Has anybody beaten Tony Ferguson? Let me ask you that question.
You know, clearly you want to see him and Khabib fight next, because he can go down and he can have his hard pass. That's all Kevin Lee do. Kevin Lee is probably the person I'm most interested in seeing fighting Khabib. But, like, I look at that three and I go, man, those three are probably, you know, clearly in the world right now. Now, no disrespect to Alvarez, but I want to see what happens. Alvarez versus a Kevin Lee would be a good next fight, because I want to see what happens when he gets Kevin, because Kevin's got probably, in my opinion, the best top position grappling right now in mixed martial arts. Like, he gets on top of you and he passes. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. He gets the full mount. And it's special, and his ground and pound's legit. So I mean, we'll see what happens, you know, as we move forward. But like, those three are going to be fun to see how that, you know, shakes up. And one thing that was very important for Khabib was this was a legit top 5 guy that he's got a victory over. When he won the title, that fight was just kind of put together last second. A guy who didn't put a training camp in for him. So now he had the most popular, you know, fighter in the world. I'd say he's probably the most popular fighter in the world. I mean, whether it's still around, but I'd say Conor might be the most popular guy in the world right now as far as combat sports. Please don't hate me for that, but I'm saying there's a really good chance he's number 1 in the world. So for him to that guy, top-ranked guy, and get a victory, he really did solidify himself what we all could see with the skill, he did with the in the so any way you want to do that 3, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Steve, I know you listen to a lot of stuff like we do. Tony talked about advancing the sport and getting into Olympic level. How do you think they can do that when, like, for instance, that fight between him and Pettis was one of the dumbest. It was a great fight, but from a technical and sensible standpoint, one of the dumbest fights I've seen on that big level. Let's just throw the rules out the window and throw down and Viva la Raza Mexican style. I know fans want to see that, but how can they advance the sport when fans think that's the only thing that's a fight? Like, if Tony would have been real technical and just made Pettis look stupid and just clown him and just I won't say outpointed him, but made him look stupid without taking any chances, people would have been upset. So it's kind of like, how can you advance the sport when people don't get that the sport is not to get hurt?
It's going to be tough, because I really do believe in that. And I might stand alone here that MMA is a finishing sport. I think that's why people love it. I think that's why it's popular. It's because it's got finishes. So back when I was growing up, you needed somebody to fight. You wanted to go see, like boxing. If you had someone in your neighborhood that tried out boxing and they started boxing, when you went to go support them, they were going to give you 4 rounds of work or 6 or 8 rounds of work, for boxing. If you went to go support somebody in Muay Thai, they were going to give you, 3 or 5 rounds of work, like you were going to see it. Stoppages happen, but I'm saying you were going to see them fight. Now you don't really show up to see people fight anymore. You show up to see somebody get smashed. That's what you want to see. So if you don't get a fight where somebody's getting smashed, but you do get a fight where 2 people are trying to kill each other, that's always going to be big in combat sports forever. So as far as, how people, first of all, go to the first part of your question as far as Pettis and Big Ferg and how they are fighting. I just think that, not that they weren't throwing clean shots, but I think that they were so determined to, this is about machismo, I'm going to go ahead and try to stop you. Plus, Pettis, once he dropped him, I really did think Pettis was going to, I thought Pettis was going to jump on his back, look at the RNC. I thought it was coming for sure. But instead, he kept throwing punches, he looked at the stoppage, and I think he was trying to make a statement. He's trying to, I stopped this guy who's been, winning for the last 6 years. And I think once they checked both guys' cuts, you could see that afterwards, Pettis slowed maybe with the hand. He slowed, and it looked like Ferg just got there. You know what I'm saying? Like he can go. So really, even though it was exciting, I felt like Pettis was fighting back more so than being competitively in the fight. And I thought that Ferg was just really, really landing a lot of offense and letting his hands go. So as far as the technical aspect of that, that's why it was fun. It's because when one guy looks like he's going to go away, he just keeps throwing back. And Pettis didn't go at all, and he just kind of took shots and bent left and right, and he kept fighting back. And I think crowd loves effort. They love to see heart displayed. Like, that's really, really important to them. As far as how it goes in the Olympics, you guys watch amateurs as well as I do, boxing, and you guys watch pro as I do, and the rhythm is so different. It's not even funny. Like the rhythm, the product that they put on an amateur, what you see at the Olympics, it's way different than the product that you have on TV. Like, they almost never reward body shots in amateur fighting. Whereas we respect Inyo just got another KO the other night. I posted it. He didn't get to the body, but Inoue from Japan right now killing people. Canelo really did some big work to the body in his last fight with Triple G. Like, that's value in the highest level. That has almost no value at the amateur level. They like when you're 1 or 2 score. So the whole amateur system is about getting you into position where you use feints and double jabs to get yourself in position to land your 2, and that's what they value the most. So the amateur product that you see in the Olympics is so different than the pro product. Now, if you go to MMA, the amateur product in MMA looks exactly like the pro product in MMA. Like, most people around the country, a lot of promoters are doing like 12 amateur fights and like 2 pro fights in the very end, and that's how they build their brand. That's how they push it. But the crowd doesn't know any better. As long as there's no headgear on them, they think they're watching the same thing. They don't know if it's pro or not. So if it's going to be amateur, like if it's going to be an Olympic system, you've got to have a separation. It's got to look different than your pro product. If that's something in there, it's got to happen. And this is coming from, I train Will Starks. Will Starks is a 2-time 170 world champion, because they've got a amateur system. The amateur team is based out of Missouri, and there's another coach who's a part of it in Chicago. But we have an amateur team and everything that goes out and does games like how Muay Thai is IFMA. They have their own program, and UFC 200 that week, I don't know if you guys know that, but they had their championships, and Will Starks, my fighter, he won the championships out there. And he wasn't my fighter at the time, he came in there later. But there is a product out there that looks different than the than the pro product, but no one knows about that product. The amateur product that you see is going to be in your local fight card, and it's going to be most of the card. LFA, for example, has amateur fights on their undercard and pro fights on their main card, but the amateurs don't wear headgear, so you wouldn't know unless the commentator told you. So until it looks different, it's going to be harder. Yeah. And plus, like, you guys saw how crooked what happens in amateur boxing and what happens in Olympics and what happens in FIFA. Those organizations are a lot of people who've been around the game for a long time, and they make sure the checks go to the same places. So it's tough to break into. It really is. It'd be like them trying to get into New York all over again. Like, it's tough to get into the Olympics when you're not a sport. So.
Yeah, in some states, they for the amateur fights, you have to wear shin guards. So that's one thing that is somewhat different for some states. I know it's not in all states. So, some amateurs. I mean, most of the amateur states, it's pretty much like you said, this very similar type of thing. And I think it's kind of weird that wearing shin guards is a thing too. I don't know. It just feels weird. It feels weird because if anybody that's listening has actually gone into the gym and trained, like, kicking with shin guards and then kicking without shin guards is like completely different. Like, it's not even close. It is completely different. It feels like you can kick a hole through a wall with a shin guard on, and without it, it feels like you may not even want to like lightly touch that wall. Like, if you didn't have your shin guards on, but it's a world of difference, and it's just kind of crazy. I mean, I think as far as amateur goes, like the IMMAF is one of the organizations that's trying to push for that Olympic recognition, and I think they did. I don't know if it was that 200 week. Was it that 200 week, or was it that? It was one of the International Fight Weeks. They had a big event going on during International Fight Week. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and
that was 200.
They had a thing going on where they had 3 cages set up, and everything felt like it was like a team atmosphere. You had the teams marching out together wearing the same.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh yeah, that's
Will Starks.
Okay, yeah. It was cool because like I covered that as well in between the UFC stuff, and it was a pretty cool feel to it. I would like to see that gain more steam. That was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It didn't feel too far different from the pro product, but obviously, the crowd sizes and of course that team feel to it was completely different, and the country recognition as well. But it was a pretty cool thing. It's pretty cool. And that was the same thing you were talking about, right, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Also, Steve, for me, I know
Shorty Torres in the UFC. He was a world champion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, Steve, I know we all watch like wrestling too. I'm tired of this whole wrestling element coming into MMA. Why do everybody think they need to be the matchmaker? And they're all upset about, like, there's more people more upset with that Tony Ferguson got screwed because he did financially than he is. Like, if he ain't upset, well, I would be mad. But it's like too many people want to put pressure on the UFC to do these crazy things that make no sense just because that's what they want to see. And still, you can't sit there and say, hey, I want the Cowboys to play the Redskins in week 6 because they 2-3. They need to get another win because they're a charity and be giving away ball games. That's what sports. But that's basically what they be doing now. It's like, it's getting ridiculous.
I think, first of all, it's really clear to all the fighters that the athletes that get paid the most sell themselves the most. Like the Conor McGregor has that ability to sell himself. Not just how he fights, but how he sells himself. He gets paid the most. So clearly, an even more relevant example to kind of, what we're experiencing over here is Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey, even before she had success, I first heard about her when I was listening to a podcast, and Jordan Breen had brought up, that she had the amateur judo background, and he says that she's aesthetically pleasing. That's usually his words he used anytime he said somebody was pretty. And I remember him talking about her And then I remember her fighting, and there is something there is a Tyson type feel to it when someone says, I'm going to go out and win by armbar, and everyone knows you're going to come out and win by armbar, and you're trying to do your whole camp to defend the armbar, and you lose by armbar. There is a special feel to something like that. That made her rise good, but nothing made her rise greater than the fact that she sold it all the time. Like, she just talked herself up all the time. She had that element. Naturally, she had that element. It's weird because when I watch the WWE now, I almost wish that they'd kind of let her go a little bit more, because they script a lot of things that she does, and it doesn't come off as natural as it does when she fought. But, like, ideally, that's kind of how it is. Like, those athletes get paid the most. So then a lot of people are saying, so the girl who had the title stripped from her, Nico, she was like, I'm not, talking trash, and I don't bring in the big bucks. That's why they stripped my title. And for other athletes, they let them keep their title. And for me, I mean, I would say there's some truth to that. Like, it's not 100% wrong. Now, again, you guys know my relationship with Valentina Shevchenko and their camp, so clearly they wanted, we wanted that opportunity. She wanted that opportunity. So I come from a different perspective as far as those two go. But as far as what she's saying, she's correct. Because if Ronda Rousey had something happen and didn't make weight, she would not have gotten stripped. We all know that.
Right.
If Conor had been a champion and didn't make weight, now we all know that. So I think when people say, hey, why is it leaving sport? That's the biggest problem. Why is it leaving sport? Like, the top-ranked people should only fight for the title. How come people get to say no to Kamaru Usman? How many people get to say yes to whatever? How come people get to sit out and wait for the right kind of fight? How come people get to, wait for certain types of matchups to get their opportunities to get to the top? Why is the sport like that? And I look at it and I go, it's always been like that. They're the people who make in this sport historically. There's nothing wrong with being Bernard Hopkins. You know what I'm saying? He's a to make money or notoriety, I'd say, until after his 20-year, his 20 defense run. I think that he is more popular after the Jermaine Taylor losses than he was during his whole run, barring the Trinidad fight. Definitely shout out to him for the Trinidad fight. I think that was the one that got him big. But, like, other than that, I think that he had a long period of time of being the best without anybody realizing it or pushing him or thinking he was of note at all. I felt like that's how I personally feel. So I look at how that was with B-Hop, and I look at how things are with the UFC, and I go, okay, whenever someone gets on the mic and they say, I'm looking for this opportunity, I'm looking for this fighter, I'm looking for this, I'm behind them. I think that's cool. I think that's what they should be doing. I think they should be selling themselves in that way. But at the same time, I also think that athletes who don't have that ability, who go out there and say, whoever the UFC gives me, I'll take. Those athletes are the ones that you see posting on social media, when's my next fight, and when's, like, it's so much easier to ask for things. Put the idea in their mind. So I think people don't like that aspect of it because, like you said before, the Dallas Cowboys are not having their schedule changed. It's set for the whole year. You know? In combat sports, it has always been this way. In every combat sport, the champion is going to be. You see Mayweather. Mayweather didn't fight Margarita when Margarita was in his prime. He didn't fight Mosley when Mosley was in his prime. Like, he found the right guys at the right time. He did fight Diego Krause when Diego was really good. But, like, I wouldn't say overall,
that was his best fight, by the way.
Yes, I feel like that was his best fight. So I do feel that right fight, right time, moved at the right. His Mayweather, to me, the thing that makes him a legend is not his run at run 147. It's his run at 130. That's what makes him a legend.
I thought it was 135.
130? I thought that they fought at 30. I thought he fought Corrales at 30.
I thought it was 135. But I know you're saying that was the best fight Mayweather in that era. I know you're talking about. He beat him, Gotti. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That was the best fight Mayweather.
Yeah, because Gotti, when he stepped up to 140, I remember just because everybody talks about the Max Kellerman call. When Max Kellerman said, this is the most one-sided main event of HBO broadcast probably ever in history. Because everybody was like, Mayweather's just way better. Sorry I got off subject. But anyways, the things that I think really started to sell Mayweather and make Mayweather a star was he won his most important fight was the fight with De La Hoya. And he was able to win it fighting the way that he fights. But after that, it was like, normally you don't get the rub, as Cormier says all the time from wrestling. Normally it doesn't happen. When Nunes beat Ronda, it did not rub off. People who watched Nunes did not want to watch Nunes after she beat Ronda. Whereas people wanted to watch Mayweather after he beat De La Hoya. Now, it probably has a lot to do with Pacquiao. That comes into play. But, man, it's just different sport, different world. But the principles of mixed martial arts and kickboxing and MMA are always the same. The goal is, if you sell yourself, more people will want to see fight. So the professional wrestling element is selling the athletes. That's what professional wrestling does. They sell you on this matchup. This is important. Just 1 versus 3, people feel like should be enough. 4 versus 8 should be enough, but it's never been that way.
No, it hasn't. And Daniel Cormier said it best recently after his last win. You know, all these guys that don't want to do it, just stay broke. You know, like if you're in the UFC and you're expecting a handout to the top, it's not going to happen. You got to make an impact. If you want to be quiet, if you want to go out there and win a boring 3-round decision and then get on the mic and say, oh, whoever's next, I don't care. You might as well go to PFL, because at least at PFL, you have a point system. You have a set schedule of when fights will happen, barring an injury or whatever. Like, you're going to advance up the ladder in the PFL if you just win your fights, you know. Like, you don't have to worry about all the promotional things. But if you're in the UFC, a promotion that is heavily marketed around who are the most entertaining and the most exciting fighters, you can't be a decision fighter your entire career and say, I don't care. Like, nobody's going to connect with you. And that's exactly why we see Conor McGregor making millions of dollars. That's why we've seen him change the game in terms of what his opponents are being paid. His opponents have gotten their highest paydays ever in recent. You know, he made Nate Diaz a multimillionaire even. You know, so it's like, these guys got to understand it. But I mean, at the same time, it's got to be genuine. You can't do like what Colby Covington's doing, because Colby's trying to do it, but Colby comes off so fake because we saw Colby early in his career, and he went complete 180. Like, that's not you, Colby. We know it. We know it.
Well, with that said, he did get opportunities because he started talking that way.
He did.
You know, like, even if you don't like it, if it doesn't come off genuine, and the big thing with him is it comes off kind of awkward. You know, like it come off. But with that said, you know, had an interim title and a guy that's stripped, but he's still walking around and using it and meeting the president as if it's still a real title. So I mean, it's it's kind of everybody has their thing. Yeah.
How about this? Ann Walker from Sherdog put this. He wrapped it up nicely in a tweet after last night. He was like, "We go from this circus of seeing Khabib jumping out of the cage and fighting people in the crowd and all this stuff in that circus after that event, and now we transition into potentially the circus that will be Tyron Woodley versus Colby Covington fight promotion, which is going to involve the MAGA versus the liberal crowd and all that kind of crap. It's just going to be ugly, to say the least. So it's like,
and it's going to work. It's going to work.
It is going to work.
There are people. I saw somebody, one of the fighters, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Nick Lentz. I think he said, shout out to my boy Brett Kavanaugh.
Yes, he did.
So it's like there are a lot of people who, there's a lot of Republicans in fighting. It's always going to be that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, there are people from both. I would almost lean and say there might be more than half, but yes, I do think that there is a as far as Americans go, by the way.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. My
too. What's that?
My wife was.
I'm sorry.
My wife was pointing out the racial undertone at the sports bar last night. She's like, because when they called that Conor, it was about 75% of people going, and then when they called out Khabib, it wasn't just like people were cheering because it was Khabib basically this is a Muslim guy, he represents me. You can kind of see that racial undercurrent in the sports bar, which was kind of crazy, and she picked up on it because even though Conor is not from here, he gets quote unquote white privilege because he represents more of that side. It's crazy.
It's people are always gonna feel that way. It's not like Khabib's mixed. You know what I'm saying? Like he is. I mean, what I would consider a white dude, like he's Russian and but I don't think I just don't think that when I see, and I've talked to Khabib before, he's cool people, I've never had a problem with him, but in the end, he spent his whole career, fighting and being respectful and just looking to compete. And he's actually pretty good in the mic, considering it's his second language.
Yes.
But then he goes against Conor, and he's attacked in a way that's different. Even though he probably knew it was coming, he's attacked in a different way, And here it is. He watches Conor do this with, Aldo, and he sees the breakdown of it and how Aldo took, the insults to family and culture and so on. And then, he got dragged all over the country to be part of that. And Khabib wasn't doing that. He wasn't going anywhere. Khabib didn't play the game at all. Khabib really does get an A+ for how he handled everything. As far as going into the fight week, he was like, I'm not waiting on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, just every fight before it. And then when the fight ended, it was like, dude, this is your moment. This is the most eyes on anything. I don't care what people say about, we were talking about before about wrestling and how people feel like, just being a good fighter should be enough. You look at the numbers and ratings all over this whole UFC calendar, and I will tell you the pay-per-view numbers for this one will probably be more than all the others combined. Like, that's how much people are drawn. Well, I won't say combined, but it'll be up there. Like it'll be something that you clearly see people who have this sort of tension are drawn to it, are drawn to this type of fight, are drawn to these types of athletes. So even if it's not your character, stepping out of your character when you're going against the best guy in the world, that'll do it for you. The best talker in the world, that'll do it for you. So I think that the next thing moving forward for the UFC is just to realize that, all right, there's nothing you can do about the bad press, but you got to build on your brand. And Conor, some people are saying Conor goes against GSP next. I wouldn't do that personally, especially because GSP is, a little bit bigger and he can, the wrestling. If I'm doing Conor's next fight, I'm doing Diaz, or I'm doing something that makes sense to his skill set. But everybody's still different.
Yeah, I think you do the loser of Poirier-Diaz. That's what I think you do. And then the winner of that fight, depending on what happens to Khabib, if Khabib gets suspended, you put them in there against Ferguson, and that'll be for an interim title, or if not, the full title. Because if they suspend Khabib, I think they suspend him. I think it's probably going to be like a year suspension. And then if it's a year suspension, they're going to strip him of the title. And then, of course, that means Tony Ferguson versus whoever. And then you got a new champ coming up, I think, by March.
Right. Steve, this is a two-part question. One, if they were to not let him get a work visa, do you think they would ever go boxing style and like have the fights outside the country? You know how Pacquiao's basically been doing since he lost to Floyd? He was not fighting America.
Dana said he wasn't doing that.
Okay, well, you the one always been talking about how Dana says one thing and do another.
I know, and two, Dana said. Hashtag Dana said.
And what's your take on managers, especially Ali Abdelaziz? I never asked you this because our take on managers, just what we do. I think it's kind of crazy when you paying somebody to do a job and you act like you can't talk and you're a grown ass person and you're paying somebody to do a job. Let me run about our managers. Even with stuff we do, it makes no sense. Like me and Matt have various close levels with certain fighters, and we'll deal with them like, hey man, I like you a lot, man, but let me go by my manager. Like, bruh, you paying them. What the hell are you doing? But I want you to hear your take on Ali because your boy Conor basically read our man Kareem's manual on all that. He can spin stuff out spot by spot by spot. It's kind of crazy with the sport as MMA being on the growth. How you can have somebody with so many red flags associated with it and don't think it's not gonna come back on you. It may not be today, it might not be the next year, but in the next 4 to 5 years, it will come back. No doubt.
So, of the athletes that I work with that have Ali as a manager, all of them love him. Like they feel like he fights for them. If he gets them the most money, he gets them opportunities that don't come their way. As a businessman, history aside, he has done right by the people who have been working. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm saying, no matter what you feel about his history, he has done right by them, and they feel comfortable with him, and they like him. They feel like he's got in the corner. There are people who are going crazy about C.R. Eubanks fighting for the title, but She got it. You know, I don't care what your resume is. She got the title. Now, again, that she was supposed to fight for it already. People forget that she was supposed to. She went 3-0 in the Ultimate Fighter. She is supposed to fight for it. She missed. She came back. She won a fight. Same thing they should do with Nico. Nico goes out. She wins a fight. She could fight for the title again. But like she goes out his weight, doesn't get the opportunity to fight for the title. She goes and wins a fight, and now she's in that picture. And you know, you hear the stuff, of course, with Joe Rogan's very famous. I work here, and I don't even know who she is. A lot of people were upset because there are 135ers that move down to 25 who they're familiar with, and they're not as familiar with Eubanks. I think that happened because her name was up there, up for consideration anyways, but then she's got someone fighting for her. You've got Ali, who's got, you know, how many guys on the roster? You've got someone who's got to work for you. So if you can't, especially if you can't do the professional wrestling thing, you better have somebody that can fight for you. And I think that he does have his athletes. You know, if you can't sell yourself into those spots, he's able to do that. So no matter what you feel about managers and so on, he's there a lot of times at the main event, you know, so he works for his guys. You could say that, you know, about Bob Arum. You could say that about, you know, Don King. No matter what you say about these guys, they are there with an athlete in the main event for very, very many years. So we'll see what comes of it. And the second part of your question, could you repeat the second part? You asked about Ali. What was the part before that of your question, Kendrick?
You actually said some part. I was like, zoom along. We asked about the.
He's forgetting. Anyways, let me say this about Ali. Kendrick, if you remember it, come back to it. But I'll say this about Ali. One of the things I hear is that he's good. Like, he has good relationships with the fighters. You know, he gets them in these spots, which is good. But I also hear at the same time that he doesn't fight for them necessarily as hard as he should when it comes to actual pay. I've heard that from a number of sources, that he will get them these opportunities, but what he's sacrificing is the appropriate pay that they should be receiving. So that's one of the knocks, besides of the fact of the past that I always hear about him.
About fighting outside the country, do you think like how Pacquiao does it? Because just because he said what happened, like for instance, if Conor's in that same situation, I guarantee you Conor gets at least 2 or 3 fights before he rides off into the sunset. If he was in the same situation, I don't know if Khabib's that big of a star yet, but I wonder if he would do that. If it was like, do you have to be a Pantheon great for him to do something like that?
The European fan base for combat sports right now is probably one of the best in the world, you know, just in general. Anytime I watch a boxing event over there, in my mind I'm like, how do they have all this money? Because like all their crowds are always like full, you know.
Anthony Joshua.
Anthony Joshua, of course. Like I'm like, wow, that's a big place to fill. And you know, Rico Verhoeven and Glory Kickboxing just the other week. I don't know if you saw those pictures, but he filled like half of a soccer stadium. You know, like just it's the combat crowd that they have in Europe is so big right now, and KSW is not the UFC. They're a Polish-run organization, and they did what, 54,000 for an MMA event. So it's like now is the time to really use that part of the world. They went to Moscow just recently, and they did it with, you know, Olenek, who is not in any stretch of the imagination a UFC star. He is a guy who the hardcores know, because it gets that really weird, you know, Ezekiel choke submission. People know it's coming, and it happens anyway. And he beats Mark Hunt, who was a replacement to Verdum, and they had an okay crowd there. I think if Khabib does it, they sell that joint out. I think if they go to Dagestan and they could do it, like they sell it out. I think they have that opportunity. Now, again, it's got to make money sense for them, because they still love their pay-per-view model, and I think that's the main reason why you haven't seen it as much. Because of the time in which the events would have to take place, that's why you haven't seen as many of the major pay-per-views happen over in London and so on. I think when they went to, what was it? It was really early in the morning for them, but it ran at 9 for us when Bisping fought Henderson. It was like 2 in the morning for them, you know, but for us it was around our pay-per-view times. If they're going to do it, that's what they sacrifice. Like, they've got to move it in a way so that people can see it. Ronda fought at 12 in the morning in, Melbourne. I was there for that event. So it's done at a different time, like it's done. That's probably the logistics that's going to keep him from fighting out of the country more than anything. So when Dana says no, that's the real thing that he's saying is, this is where I make my pay-per-view money. So if I'm going to move us out of the country, that's going to be a problem, Plus, if I get a Conor, they're going to come watch him anyway. So I'll just do Conor in New York. That's an easier flight. And how quickly did this one sell out? We all heard the ticket prices. We're like, man, that's high. And then they go on sale, and they're all sold out just like that quick. So time will tell, but I really think that the only thing that's kept the UFC from having those huge crowds, from doing the European scene, is the pay-per-views. Tilt did well in Liverpool. Do it. They didn't go back there. Conor was saying that, hey, I'm talking to Dana White about filling out soccer stadiums, and it didn't happen. Like I was like, and I think it would. I think if he fought over Rhode Island, he could fill one. But it's just the pay-per-view model, I think, is the thing that they're sticking with as opposed to the gate.
No, so no Jerry World in the UFC feature.
Well, Jerry don't share that much.
No, I learned that from Canelo. No, trust me, I know about that.
Yeah, so we're going to go to Jerry's world. He's getting his cut. So that might be, I'm assuming that's why it hasn't happened yet. Just trying to decide what that number would be.
I don't know for MMA, but I know for Canelo, he got like 25 to 30 mil. That was just off of Canelo, and he wanted like 40 for Mayweather Pacquiao, to the point that Mayweather flew out here on his jet to Dallas and basically, hey, no disrespect type thing, but you ain't gonna get this much money and don't get hit in the head. It's basically what he told him in a nice way.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you know your value, fight for your value. So I've got no problem with that if that's how Mayweather felt, and I got no problem with Jerry saying that. He's just, there is a reason why we stopped having it. Remember, we had Pacquiao twice and Canelo once. No, Pacquiao once. Canelo once, Pacquiao twice, if I remember correctly. Those are the only boxing events we had there, and they all did well. But I just next thing you know, that Minute Maid Park, and I'm like, I wonder why he went there, for Canelo, and I go, oh, that's why he went for money.
Absolutely. It is what it is, man. I don't know. It would take a very, very special card for that to happen. It would have to be, Conor would have to go out and get another win and then set up a rematch with Khabib. We'd have to have John Jones and Daniel Cormier on that card, too, for their final fight.
And Ronda coming back.
Ronda would probably have to come back. Yeah, it'd have to be a spectacular blockbuster event to fill up that stadium. It would be a lot. It would be a hell of a card.
They could scale it for 80, though. But see, when I think like that, but then, how many people were in Melbourne? Because you were there.
Yeah.
How many people were there? Because see, I think they can scale it for 80 and get away with like just like a Conor, and then bring the Ronda aspect. Because if she did 55 by herself, I like to think one of them could emerge without being as big a card as everybody think it has to be. Like, I see what you're saying, Matt, in theory. But if she did 55 by herself, and Conor could do 40, 55 by himself, you just put them two together with the comeback aspect and the rematch aspect, that would be like lightning in a bottle, don't you think?
Yeah, it could be.
But it definitely would take star power, like Pantheon great shit. UFC Hall of Fame stuff they took for it to work, though, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It should be noted that we did take a hit in that. One of the reasons why they were superstars is because they were untouchable at one period of time. Exactly. And I think that the timing, of course, would have been when Ronda was undefeated and when Conor was, undefeated champ. I'd say right after Aldo, you were still safe. Because I don't think that, if I remember correctly, Ronda lost the next year after the Aldo fight. I could be off there. She either lost in October before the Aldo fight or she lost the following year. I can't remember exactly. But I look at, if that would have been the time, when they are both in the height of their powers, that would have been the time. Cain Velasquez, if he had stayed healthy, I think there was a good chance that he could have been that kind of a star, but he didn't, and then he lost. So that's who we have as our premier stars. They are all a little, damaged as far as the immortality of it. And there's no one underneath them that's that right now. There's no one coming up the ranks that I'm looking at that's like, is this person a Ronda? This person, I don't see it. Not that you can't win all the time. I'm just saying I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. It would have had to have been before Ronda at 193, because 194 was when Conor beat Aldo. So that was the
Okay,
that. But yeah, I agree. I agree, man. Fortunately, I don't see it happening. I mean, but eventually, I think within the next couple of years, there's going to be another star. I mean, if you look at the time frames, like we had the Ronda era, which came and went, like in a lightning in a bottle, really. Like that was only what, maybe 4 years, where she was like on top of the world, and now Conor McGregor popped up.
That's a long time. 4 years is a long time in combat sports.
It is for combat sports, but I'm saying like in regular time frames, like 4 years isn't all that long. When you think about it, that's just when you think about compared to other sports, professional teams like it takes 4 years for them to rebuild when they go into rebuild mode. So you had the Ronda era, then you had the Conor McGregor era. Somebody else is going to come through and take that #1 spot. It may not even be somebody that's in the UFC right now, but somebody else will come up and capture the allure of the crowds. And I don't know if it'll be record numbers like Conor's doing right now, but it'll be somebody else in that holding that spot strong. I'm interested to see who it'll be.
Now remember, there are gaps. Historically, there are gaps to it.
That is
so
true.
If you look in boxing. You look at Sugar Ray Leonard. His timing, the thing that made it so important is that Leonard came right after Ali. Like Ali was winding down his career. He came in and he had the smile. He could sell everyday product. Like it's different now. Now there's so many different ways to make money. But back then there wasn't that many. The major corporations owned everything. So if you were selling like Coke in a commercial, that's a big deal for you to be selling Coca-Cola. That's a big deal. Yeah. And that was him, the Olympic champion who threw a billion punches, who had to smile, who had to fight. And the biggest thing was he fought the toughest guys. And he came back, like the no moss fight, big deal, because he loses and then he comes back and he gets the victory, like just, later in the year. Like that's important to sports. So he came, and then after him, you took a little bit. We had a little bit of a gap before De La Hoya came around, and De La Hoya wasn't loved by everybody.
What about Tyson?
A little bit for De La Hoya. Yeah. So it's like, what's that?
What about Tyson? You skipped Tyson. Tyson did De La Hoya.
Yeah. Leonard, Tyson to De La Hoya, but De La Hoya's run was probably in one of the best eras of 154 pounds ever. Like that's him and Vargas and Trinidad. Like that really was a great time for those guys. They always turn to Corte. They always turn it over to that next generation. But we had a gap. I would say the heavyweight division, of course, they had, and the Klitschko's were on top. Just didn't have as many people to be excited about those fights because of the way they took places. And we didn't have anybody in the lower divisions that was really wowing us. Mayweather didn't materialize until the De La Hoya fight. So there's going to be gaps in it all the time. So if I look at MMA right now and I say, okay, even if when like KO all the time, that doesn't necessarily do it. There's just something about you. There's some sort of it factor that you have that draw people in. And I think that there are fighters that are going to have a lot of success. I think there are fighters that are going to be very good. I think Tatiana Suarez is going to be really, really good and tough to beat at 115. Yeah. With that said, do I feel like Suarez has got crossover appeal to be selling Sprite one day? Yeah. I think that's a little bit tough. Yeah. Even still, fighter. So, because Ronda could do that, and Conor could do that. Conor's selling his own whiskey, so it's like that's a different type of.
Yeah. Proper number 12.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we'll call that a proper ending to this episode, man. We appreciate the time, Steve. As always, man, giving us your insight and on the fallout of UFC 229 and all the madness surrounding it, man. As always, man, thanks for coming on the show. We always have fun talking to you and getting your unique insight on things.
No problem. You guys have a good night.
Appreciate it, brother.